think about this parable, how many of you have heard it before in your life? Probably since you were a kid. The seeds, the seed, the root, the wheat and the tares, the wheat and the darnel, the wheat and the poison, whatever. We've all heard that. And Jesus was trying to talk to his people, and they were fussing about, well, Lord, all you're saying is really great, but my life kind of stinks. Well, Lord, all you're promising is really great, but you know, my headache is now. My stomach is hungry now. My kids are bad now. Well, we're not going to talk about it. You know, life is difficult now. And I think Jesus probably, as he started his parable, asked a question. How many of you have ever had a problem in your life? See, the three dynamics of problems is either you are influenced or affected by one. You have to deal or live with one. Wives know that better than anybody. Or, as Johnny Thunder will tell you, you are one. The reality is, part of the first truth Jesus is pointing to is this guy had his life, he bought good seed, he went out and sowed it faithfully, he did everything right. He worked hard in the hot sun, and he went home, cleaned up, and probably dropped into bed like many of us do after a long day, physically exhausted, but glad it was over. And then in the night came the enemy. It's called life. And suddenly everything he had thought and hoped for and depended upon and worked for and sacrificed for came to an end. Just like that. Houston, we got a problem. Yeah, Jesus, all this stuff you're saying, really great, man. I love it, but I got a problem. So Jesus looked at these people, and he knew they were suffering. You know, so-and-so lost his house, so-and-so got arrested. She lost her kids. He got killed in the war. You know, her spouse left her. His spouse left her. He lost his job. He was beat up by the Romans. And he looked out over the masses of people that were hungry and poor and thirsty in rags. And they have a right to say, Lord, all the stuff you're saying is great, but come on. He just looked at her and said, I'm going to tell you a story. And he told this parable, and now we've always preached it and interpreted it as, well, you know, there's good guys and the bad guys, but in the end the good guys are win. Kind of like an old Roy Rogers movie. Remember him? Or am I dating myself? You know, in the end, everything worked out. How about the Lone Ranger? Same thing. The Lone Ranger comes, who was that masked man? I'd like to thank him. No need to thank the Lone Ranger. You know, in the end, God wins. Everybody's happy. But is life really like that? Boy, we wish it was, don't we? First great truth of dealing with problems. You know what it is? You know what the first great truth is? You can write these three down. This is suitable for framing. The first great truth is everyone, regardless of the casual contact or the intimate contact, everyone on this planet that you ever meet or come in contact with will either enhance your life for the positive or influence it for the negative. Everyone. There's no way around it. No man is an island. No man is a pizza either. I don't know what that means. But I know for a fact that no matter who, what, when, where, or why, anyone and everyone you ever meet in your entire life will influence your life greater or lesser degrees, either for the positive or the negative. Right down to the guy who sells you your car, right down to the lady who makes your burger and it's all nasty. The lady in the checkout line with 300 items in the 10 item or less. Does that not influence you? You're influencing me. Everyone. To the loving wife of 65 years, to the unloving wife of 65 minutes. Doesn't make it in. The boss at work, the employee that got the promotion over you, or the employee that lifted you up and said, give her the promotion. There's an influence for the positive, isn't it? But I know one great truth. There's no escaping it. Jesus aside, the rhetoric aside, the promises aside, the fact of the matter is, on this planet, you will be influenced either to the positive or the negative by any and every one you meet. You're having a good day, you're driving down the road, somebody cuts you off, they give you a hand gesture, something about their team's number one or something like that. They swear at you and they speed off. Suddenly, what happened to your great day? Just like that! It's gone. Somebody shortchanged you at the grocery store. And you're going, wait a minute. You were happy when you went in there. And then suddenly, you're not so happy anymore. Snotty sales clerk. Just like that. Every day, all day, everybody you meet. In fact, even if you're alone, you can say, well, gosh, I'm not doing so great. Gee. Oh, no, we don't beat ourselves up, do we? Sure we do. That's why I said, you're either dealing with a problem, you're causing a problem, or you are the problem. But the first great truth of those problems is they will influence you. Every single person on this planet will influence you either for the greater or the lesser. They will make you greater or they will make you lesser. They will make you better or they will make you bitter. That is a God's honest truth. That soil that you planted a good seed in, the enemy can plant poison in just as easily. That's part of this parable. This isn't a parable about good guys and bad guys. It's a parable about individual and personal human development, growth, maturity. How is Ramon going to deal with it? Well, I'll bet he's going to deal with it differently than Doris. And I'll bet Johnny will be different than Doris or Ramon. Me, I just run away. There's no problem so big that you can't run away from it. That's my philosophy. Fact of the matter is, this is a parable about human growth. And every day, every person we meet, every influence in our life, we get a chance to grow larger and better or smaller and bitter. What path are you on? See, Jesus is trying to teach us, sometimes it's not a matter of what has taken place, it's a matter of how you respond to it. You cannot always judge how people will act toward you. But you can always be in control of how you react to them. You can always be in control of how, when it's your turn, how you act to another. Are you going to be like the guy that aggravated you, or are you going to lift this person up, make their life just a little easier for at least a few minutes? See, you are in control of those two aspects of your life. How you will act towards others and how you will react when others influence you. And know this, they will. They will. Like it or don't, expect it or not, surprise or not surprise, they will. First great truth of handling human hurts, handling human headaches, handling the heart is to know, first of all, anybody I meet this day and every day, all day, can influence me for the greater or lesser. Secondly, not the second truth, but part B of the first truth, is if they have that kind of influence over me, I will retake control by having how I will act or react towards them. All right, I got a field full of poison now, but the wheat is still good. Now the servants came and they said, well, we'll go out there and tear up all the weeds. Well, then I'm going to lose all the wheat. Most landowners wouldn't think that through. They say, yeah, light it on fire, burn the whole thing down. Maybe we can get another crop in before the season ends. No, this guy says, you know what? Let's everybody be cool here for a minute. Just relax. Let's let them grow together. Because we all know the wheat's going to grow a lot taller. The darnel will look just like wheat, but it'll be half as tall. Then when the harvest comes, we'll go and we'll pull out all those weeds, tie them up, put them in the furnace. And then the wheat we will go and carefully, cautiously harvest, making sure it's wheat, and gather that into the barn. Not all is lost here, people. Wow, that's a mature mind. To look at a disaster, he worked hard, he got good seed, he invested all his money, his efforts, his energies, planted a perfect field, went to bed to sleep, and through no fault of his own, life came and destroyed it. And facing that, and it was a very, very strong thing in those days, facing that entire loss, he looks at it and says, you know what? Not all is lost here. We're not going to hate anybody. We're not going to go after anybody. We're just going to be patient. We're going to wait through a tough situation. We're going to work through a deadly situation. We're going to be very cautious. We're going to be very concerned. But we're not going to act rashly or lash out in anger or retaliation. We're just going to let them grow together. Because you know what? That's what this life is all about. I'm going to give you a secret, people. There's good guys and bad guys in this world. That's the truth. That's Jesus saying it. The poor you will have with you always. The enemy you will have with you always. Jesus said, take care of the ones that are in front of you if they're poor, and love your enemies. When they strike out, turn the other cheek. Let them boot you again. Why would Jesus make such a stupid statement as that? You know why? Because he's trying to teach you, you have control. You have control over how you will act toward people in the first place. You have decision over how you will react when they strike. I guarantee you, as sure as I'm standing right here right now, they will strike. Because the first great truth is every individual on this planet, regardless of the contact, can and will influence you. Either make you better or make you bitter. But the ball's in your hand how you will react. Second great truth. You know what the second great truth is? No one can influence you for the worse, can cause you hurt or discouragement or disillusionment, disappointment. Nobody can hurt you without your permission. Did you ever think of that? I think Eleanor Roosevelt said that, to be honest with you. Something to that effect. I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt. I can't remember. I have to go back and watch The Princess Bride over again. Say, what? Second great truth is nobody can hurt you unless you allow them to. You have control over how you can act towards them and how you can react towards them. But if you carry away the pain and suffer with it that evening or the next day or the next week, that's all on you, folks. The circumstance is over. The event's finished. It's past history now. Reminds me of an old Chinese parable. Two monks were, traveling in their monkey suits. And they came to a river, and these were monks of an ancient order that were chaste and holy and pure. And they came to a river, and they saw there a very attractive young teenage girl, and the river was flowing very hard. And the young monk said to the older monk, do you think we can make it across? And the older monk said, we can make it, son, worry not. And the older monk went over, and he picked up the young girl, which was forbidden in his priesthood, and he carried her across the stream, water raging, and he got her to the other side, and he put her down, and he bid her farewell, and they walked on. That was early in the morning. Later that afternoon, as they were fixing to retire and spend the evening in a grove, the young monk said, how could you violate all of our orders and laws by carrying that young woman, touching her, and carrying her? You know what the old monk answered him? The old monk said, I did pick up that woman to help her. She was in trial. And I bore her burden through the river, but I put her down on the other bank, the other shore, and left her there. It is you, my son, that continues to carry her. Ooh. Little parable there. It is you who continues to carry it. Think about that for a minute. No one can hurt you. No one can cause you pain unless you allow it. Nobody can tell you you stink. No one can tell you you're no good. No one can tell you you're lousy or you don't measure up unless you allow it. Oh, the world will tell you that. I guarantee you, for as many as one person who tells you you're wonderful, 10 will tell you you're not. That's the world, folks. But no one can actually affect you or hurt you unless you allow it. You keep carrying it on. I believe she said that. I swear I was. The only life you're ruining is your own, folks. How do you deal with human hurts? First, realize that when the potential of hurt comes, and it will come, by any and every individual you ever meet, you have the option, you have the control to either act or react in any way you want. For the better or for the worse. And then walk away from that situation. And if you're still paining after it, that's all on you. All on you. No one has the right or the power to hurt you unless you let them. I think that's what this parable is about, partly. The second great truth. The guy looked at it and he says, oh, all those lost, woe is us. And he said, I don't think so. Not necessarily. Tell you what, why don't we just have a picnic? What? Let's grow up and let it grow. Let God grow them up. Oh, it'll evidence itself sooner or later. And we'll go out there and we'll get rid of the danger and we'll collect the bounty, put it in the barns, and we'll have another picnic. How many of us would react like that? Very few. Because we don't have a mature mind to understand what control we do have. And Jesus looked out over these people all just beaten and broken and starving and hungry and rags. And they were all saying, yeah, great rhetoric, Jesus, but we got a problem. Jesus says, yes, you do. You will always have problems. Forever. But your God is bigger than your problems. And And He has given you a very precious gift, and that is how you control yourself concerning that problem. You have the right to be a problem for somebody else or not. You have a problem to carry that hurt in your heart forever or leave it at the river. You've got control over that. You just don't realize it. Oh, you get all that out of a stupid parable? Yes, I do. This isn't a parable about good guys, bad guys, start and finish. It's a parable about growth, day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, everyone you meet for the whole of your life and how you are going to respond. The mature mind looks at the poisoned field and says, that's not so bad. I just thought of a funny thing. You ever see that movie Doc Hollywood? And he has that little sports car and a truck hits it and just mashes it to pieces. And the old mechanic guy looks at it and the car's just totally destroyed. He looks at it, that doesn't look so bad. I think I can fix that. And you just look and you shake your head going, that's what this guy's doing. Looking at his whole crop destroyed and said, that don't look so bad. I think we can deal with this. Man, I wish I had that kind of patience, Lord. I wish I had that kind of maturity in my mind. But see, we don't. And we end up acting mostly like children. Well, I'll get even with him. I mean, it starts since we're this big. Yeah, well, you're this. Yeah, well, you do. Yeah, well, you that. You know, and back and forth it goes. The fact of the matter is, the third great truth is this. And this is the most painful of all three. Are you ready? What's the first one? The first one is everybody will have an influence in your life. The second one is no one can hurt you with that influence unless you allow it. But see, we're all hurting now, aren't we? That's kind of after the fact. So the third great truth is this. With God's help, we can change things and heal, but, here it comes, but He won't do it for you. He will help you, He will teach you, He will instruct you, but He won't do it for you. Look at some of them. They're pretty screwed up people. Tom, can you say that in church? I just did. Tom is pretty screwed up people. I mean, this took me 64 years to get here. What makes me think it's going to be better overnight? Lord, heal me, don't make me such an idiot. You know, I hear all of heaven laugh when I pray that prayer. Some of us hurt real bad. I get it. Been there myself. I mean, I've carried the little girl across the river and down the street quite a few times myself. But as I grow and as I learn and as I mature, I'm starting to understand I don't got to do that. I can make my life a little easier. I can get the weeds out of my garden, out of my heart, out of my life. I can get the hurt and the pain out of there. But you know what? The key word there is I. I have to do it, want to do it, work at it, painstakingly disciplined to get it out, to not let it occur again, to be aware of how I'm going to act and react toward people, because it's going to happen over and over and over again. Just like every season you plant that field and somebody comes and screws it up. God will help, but He won't do it for you. How many times Jesus said to His disciples, you feed them, you heal them, you take care of this. Well, we can't do that, Lord. I mean, you just snap a finger or something, make it happen. We don't work like that. Now, it is one thing to come before the Lord, to humble yourself before the Lord, and acknowledge your inability to deal with something. I mean, God made that quite plain in His Word as well. If any of you lack wisdom, that means lack understanding as to how to deal with something, let him ask Him, and I will grant it to them abundantly. He will be willing to teach, to take your hand, to hold you, to guide you, to direct you, but He's not going to walk for you. You got to do that. If your life is so unimportant that you'd rather suffer and be miserable all your life, then you're an idiot. Jesus didn't say that. He's a much better sport than I am. But that's what He meant. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to carry that burden. And God can help you lose it, but He's not going to do it for you. You've got to start. You've got to take that first step. You've got to leave that lady at the shore and walk on. I don't know. People in that day were just so impoverished, so hopeless, that it was difficult for Jesus to say these words to them and for it to take any root. He was planting good seed in the hearts of the people, but for some reason the world was stronger. And see, that field that He had in His parable becomes the heart of every man and every woman. God is good, the seed is good, the sower, Jesus Christ, is good. It's the enemy that's colored your heart, colored your mind, colored your life, and rejoices that you're suffering. Just like Adam and Eve, they had a good gig going there. Great garden, lots of fruit, waterfront property, low rents, and they were naked. No fashion envy is what I'm trying to say. Right up until what? The world entered. The enemy entered. And influenced. And sadly, they bought into it. How many of us have bought into it? Raise your hand. I won't even look. How many of us carry the burden to this day from maybe an influence long ago? Raise your hand. I won't even look. How many of us are taking steps to heal that hurt once and for all? Taking steps to heal that. Not just standing there waiting for God to fix my life. He will help you. He will strengthen you. He will give you wisdom, understanding, and new choice. But He will not do it for you. Something about Jesus said, each one must pick up their cross and bear it. Each one. I can't do it for Ramon. Ramon can't do it for David. I can't help either one of you. You got to do it yourself. These are the three great truths, the beginning of having to deal with heartache and hurt. We're coming up to Christmas pretty soon. Oh, it's happy, joyful. Not for many people, it's not. The pain continues. The influence negatively continues. The angers, the hatreds continue. Through the greatest joyful season, singing reindeer and Christmas trees and light bulbs all over the house, 8 million of them to give you seizures. Happiest time of the year, and brings out some of the most miserable people I've ever known on the planet. I remember this one guy who hated Christmas in my church in Jacksonville. I told him, well, I don't care, Mr. So-and-so, we're going to do it anyway. It's great for the kids. Well, I'll have your job. I don't know. Chandler, he can't keep his mouth shut. I looked at him and said, you don't want my job. Because then you'll have to deal with people like you. Well, I almost got fired over that. But see, I have the right and I have the control as to how they will influence me, as to whether or not I will allow them to hurt me, And I'm sure as heck not going to carry that on forever. I'll be done with it right now. With God's help and God's grace. Go I. 3 great truths of dealing with human hurt. Understand them, and then you can begin to live with them. We're going to do a little series about this over the next few weeks. Let us pray. Father, it is an uncomfortable subject without question. And yet it's something every one of us deal with every day, and we don't even realize it. Holy Father, I hope and I pray that this Sunday is the beginning of a wonderful lesson to promote our self-healing and to step back onto your path of righteousness and to regain the plan you have for our lives all the days of our life. Then we will know your peace and your joy abundant, even in a very poisonous and deadly world. To the glory of Jesus Christ and his promise, do we pray. Amen.